Hello, welcome to Radical Equations Lesson 2. During this lesson, we will study the properties of radicals and their application to radical equations. For all non-negative real numbers x and y, the following properties of radicals hold. Square root of x we can rewrite in exponential form as x to the power 1 over 2. Because x, which is under the square root sign, is raised to the power of 1, the numerator of the exponent 1 over 2 is 1. The index of the root is 2. This is the denominator of the fraction 1 over 2. Because we have in the left side square root, it means this is the root of index 2. X is non-negative real number because x stands under the square root sign. Example: square root of 9 in exponential form would be 9 to the power 1 over 2. Both these arithmetic expressions equal to 3. The next property. The square of square root of x is x. X is non-negative real number. So when we square root of a non-negative real number, the result would be this real number. For example, square root of 3 squared is 3. The next property. Square root of the product of two non-negative real numbers x and y equals to the product of the square roots of these two numbers. For example, square root of 4 times 9 we can evaluate two different ways. We can multiply 4 and 9, the result is 36, and square root of 36 is 6. But we also can do this way. Square root of 4 times 9 equals square root of 4 times square root of 9. Square root of 4 is 2, square root of 9 is 3, and 2 times 3 is 6. Square root of the quotient equals to the quotient of the square roots. X is non-negative real number and y is positive. For example, square root of 9 over 4 equals square root of 9 over square root of 4. Square root of 9 is 3, square root of 4 is 2. The next very important property. For all real numbers x, square root of x squared equals absolute value of x. If x is non-negative, absolute value of x is just x. But if x is less than 0, if x is negative, then absolute value of x would be the opposite number, minus x. For example, square root of 3 squared equals absolute value of 3, which is 3. Square root of negative 3 squared equals absolute value of negative 3, and again this is 3. Please pay attention. Square root of negative 3 squared is not negative 3, it is positive 3. Look here. Square root of negative 3 squared. Negative 3 squared is 9, therefore it is square root of 9, and square root of 9 is plus 3. Many students think that square root of x squared equals x. This is true only when x is non-negative. In general case, square root of x squared doesn't equal to x. For example, square root of minus 3 of negative 3 squared doesn't equal to negative 3. Square root of negative 3 squared is positive 3. because it is absolute value of negative 3. The other students think that square root of x squared equals plus or minus x. This is also not true. Square root of negative 3 squared is not plus or minus negative 3. It is absolute value of negative 3, which is 3. Example. Solve for x and find the sum of the roots. The equation is square root of x squared minus 6x plus 9 equals 2. You have 5 possible choices to choose from. The right choice is C. The sum of the roots would be 6. In order to solve this problem, notice that under the radical sign you have a quadratic trinomial x squared minus 6x plus 9, which is a perfect square. We can apply the formula square of difference, square of a minus b. This is square of the first term minus twice product of the terms plus the square of the second term. Therefore, the quadratic trinomial x squared minus 6x plus 9 we can rewrite as square of difference x and 3. The first term is x, this is the square of the first term. The second term is 3, this is the square of the second term. And 6x is twice product of the terms x and 3. Now we can apply the formula. Square root of expression squared is absolute value of this expression. Square root of x minus 3 squared is absolute value of x minus 3. And we get the equation absolute value of x minus 3 equals 2. There exist two real numbers, which absolute value equals 2. These are numbers negative 2 and positive 2. Therefore, x minus 3 equals either negative 2 or x minus 3 equals positive 2. Now we can move negative 3 to the right side in both equations. We change the sign and we get x equals 3 minus 2 or x equals 3 plus 2. Therefore, x equals 1 or x equals 5. The given radical equation has two real roots, 1 and 5, and the sum of the roots equals 6. Of course, you can solve this equation by squaring both sides. Square root being squared gives you radicand, the expression which stands under the radical sign. So we get x squared minus 6x plus 9 equals 4. Then we move 4 to the left side of the equation. 9 minus 4 is 5. And the quadratic trinomial x squared minus 6x plus 5 could be factored. The factors are x minus 1 and x minus 5. Because the product of negative 1 and negative 5 is positive 5, and the sum of negative 1 and negative 5 is negative 6. The product of two factors equals 0 when either first factor equals 0 or second factor equals 0. And we get the same answer, x equals 1 or x equals 5. The sum of the roots is 6. This is the end of this lesson. Thank you very much for participation. This was Vladimir Luzgin. Goodbye.